I'm joined in studio by Murray Hunter from the Right to Know campaign. Now, the Right to Know campaign, along with other interest groups, have lodged an application in the Western Cape High Court, and it's all got to do with what's happening in Parliament at the moment. Murray, why don't you just explain to us, what is this application?
Sure. Look, I don't think I need to tell you that what happened on Thursday was a very worrying sign, and I don't think I need to tell you that Parliament seems like it's in a very bad place right now. And maybe the SONA debate that we're seeing now is showing a degree of stability that we didn't see on Thursday. But essentially, what we have all gone to court to try accomplish, and by we I mean 3 different media companies, Media 24, Prime Media, and
South African National Editors Forum.
Oh yeah, which is really a non-profit, and the Right to Know campaign and another organization, ODAC. That out of the way. What we're all trying to accomplish by going to court is really 3 different things. And the first is to ensure that this issue of signal jamming never happens again. The second is to ensure that we don't see the camera being cut suddenly for unexplained reasons. And the third is to ensure that the camera isn't, instead of not being cut, it's kind of trained away, as we saw on Thursday. Instead of there being a blackout, we just saw it sort of staring into the corner like an embarrassed uncle. So we've gone to court to get that kind of urgent assurances from Parliament. Now, what we saw is that there really wasn't enough time by the time that we actually arrived in court for the court to consider all of these things. So we ended up getting an assurance on the first issue there won't be jamming. And everything else has been postponed until later in February, I think the 26th of February, for these issues around how the parliamentary feed should be handled, what assurances should there be for the public that that feed is not going to be manipulated, that we're not going to end up wondering what's going on in Parliament even while we're watching it on television.
Now, why is the current setup of the parliamentary feed problematic to South Africans?
Well, I think that the biggest concern we have is that we simply don't know what to expect. We saw twice last year in August and again in November at moments of what were really incredibly important moments of political conflict. Irrespective of what you think about them, it's incredibly important that we know that they're happening. We saw that during those times the camera was suddenly cut. We all were left in the black, in the dark, and the audio went out as well. Now, we were promised at one point that there would be an investigation of who was behind that and who took those decisions. We haven't got those assurances. We saw then this Thursday that even when the camera isn't being cut, there are still ways that the camera angle can change, the shot can change, where we're still being kept in the dark.
Right, you'll end up looking at...
no longer assuring or reassuring. We no longer feel like we're being treated in good faith. Because we've seen various commitments broken or at various times.
Now, in this application, are we asking for private cameras to be allowed into...
This application has a Part A and a Part B. And Part A was what we saw today, saying there is really an urgent need to just get these assurances for the next couple of weeks while the debate is happening and in the coming weeks.
Absolutely, it's an incredibly busy time in Parliament.
Yeah. And then there are a number of issues that we need to argue in more detail, and there needs to be more time to discuss that, again, for the long term. So that's a Part B. So Part A was just around, let's make sure that the camera isn't cut, let's make sure there's none of this jamming, and let's make sure that we don't see cutaways as well. Part B deals with a longer term assurance that these kinds of manipulations aren't going to happen in the future. And one of the proposals that are being put forward there is that for media houses to be given the right to go and bring their own cameras into Parliament. If there's a feeling that the public is no longer able to rely on the Parliamentary Communications Service to get the information it needs about what is happening in Parliament, there is a very strong argument to be made for media houses to be able to bring in their own cameras. I think that what we saw on Thursday wouldn't have been an issue if we could have had that independent feed. And as it turns out, reporters made a plan. We had cell phone cameras, we had cell phone videos, we had YouTube being used in order to get that information out there. But we need something a bit more solid and something a bit more reliable. And we have to remember, this is not the Oscar trial. This is not something that is just of interest. It is something that is at the center of our democracy, at the heart of our constitutional democracy, is this idea that we have a right to know what's happening in Parliament.
Now, before I let you go, you described Part A and Part B of the motion that was filed in court. What happens now for Part B? Where do we go from here?
So, in fact, I'm still figuring out all the details ourselves, and I can't speak in detail to it. But what we have is today essentially what we got was an undertaking from Parliament that we won't see cell phone jamming again. Parliament is undertaking to ensure that there will be no cell phone jamming. Technically, they never admitted to being part of the cell phone jamming, but that is still a very positive step. The second thing that needs to happen is in February, late February on the 26th, I believe, we're going to see arguments around what South Africans reasonably should expect from the television feed. This whole process is going to take a bit longer. There's a part B that will have to come later with, I think, a much clearer roadmap will come out of that for how the media can expect Parliament to operate and how Parliament should expect the media to operate.
But we know that tomorrow the debate continues. On Thursday the President will deliver his response, but we can be assured, thanks to that court motion, that there will be no jamming, the signal won't be cut.
That's exactly right.
Murray Hunter, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.